Hey folks, quick note before the show begins. Just wanted to say thanks for watching it. Thanks to Hearthside Bank for making it possible to replay this show for you each week on this channel. However, coming June 1st, we have started the new Sports Source Digital Network, and you might have noticed that we've already taken the 9 segments that we usually cut up from the show and used to air here. We've taken them and we've put them on the Sports Source Digital Network, our other YouTube channel, our bigger YouTube channel. We're going to be moving this show over there too. The show that you're watching right now, every week, every Sunday, goes up between 3 and 4 every week. That will now be, starting June 1st, at the Sports Source Digital Network YouTube channel. You can find it. Just look around on YouTube. Instead of the orange circle logo, it's the black circle logo. I hope it's not too big of an inconvenience for you, but it helps me get everything in line, and it's a long story as to why we didn't just start everything here. But so we could follow growth, we did 2 different things. And now it's time to move everything from here over there. So do me a favor, please, and go ahead and subscribe to the Sports Source Digital Network. And coming June 1st, we will start running this show over there, same time, Sundays between 3 and 4. And now, thank you very much. On with the show.
Since 2003, this is the Sports Source with your host, John Pennington.
The Sports Source is presented by Junk Be Gone, Pipe Wrench, and the Garza Law Firm.
The Sports Source starts now.
Good Sunday morning. Welcome into the Junk Be Gone studios on the Sports Source here. I'm Josh Ward in for John Pennington today. John will be back next Sunday. We appreciate the race, mostly staying on schedule. We might race through here in the first few minutes to catch back up, but race is complete. We will probably be racing through these 90 minutes because we have a lot to talk about on today's show. We're going to talk about Tennessee's NIL law. We'll talk about the NCAA, the House settlement. Is that happening? We got, a month to go, a little more than that, until we get to revenue share time. We'll talk about Zakai Zeigler looking to come back for a 5th year of college basketball, the Tennessee impact, rules or no rules, which do you prefer in college sports? We'll get to that, plus a lot of Tennessee football. We're going to go through different areas, Tennessee football on the offensive side, the defensive side. Where do things stand entering the summer months, couple months to go until we get to the start of fall camp? So let's get right to it with the first segment of the Sports Source, brought to you by Junk Be Gone, a great local company. Drive around town, you are likely to spot a Junk Be Gone dumpster, a lot of them. When it comes to spring cleaning, no one provides a better service. Locally owned, family owned, Junk Be Gone. And I am excited to welcome in the crew today for the show, Vince Farrar and Will West. Good morning, guys.
Good morning.
Tyler Ivins and Chuck Cavaleris. Good morning. Thanks for being here. Good morning. Okay, where do we begin with a segment that is about NIL, Tennessee's NIL law, the NCAA, House settlement, all the committees? Some committees are on pause, but a quick catch you up. At the start of this month, there was a new Tennessee law. I saw Mitt Winter, a sports attorney, describe it as the most athlete-friendly NIL law in the state of Tennessee. Prohibits all House settlement limits on NIL unless part of a federal law, or if you get into some antitrust law exemptions, which that's easy for the college sports landscape right now. But also there was discussion this week at the Power Conference level, and we have Power Conference meetings that are about to take place, of a plan that's circulating that would require schools to waive their right to sue the new College Sports Commission, and if they don't sign, they could face an expulsion from the conference and be blackballed from playing other Power Conference teams. So with the Tennessee state law, this could affect the University of Tennessee and Vanderbilt as SEC members, and then we'll see if anybody else is on board with this, how that would affect others. So I'll start there on the end. Vince Farrar, where do you start with some of the latest updates we have, some of the threats, if that's what they are?
It's ridiculous, just like everything else with this whole story and landscape of college athletics. And to me, the threat of kicking Tennessee or anybody else out of a Power 4 conference when they mean so much to you is a farce. That's not going to happen. Now, I understand them leveraging and putting their feet down and saying we have to stand together and move forward in this. But this is to me about leverage and about give and take, and it's the back and forth with the Tennessee bill and then the response afterwards. So someone has got to have the best interest of college athletic as a whole, and I'm sorry, that commission is not it. And neither is that bill for the state of Tennessee, neither is any other state that puts in a bill to try to help their universities. Everybody is about themselves, and we continue to see that with this whole process. So there's major sports, a lot that will do things that are not free market, right? And that's what the bill is trying to help. Hey, we want to keep everything free market. And that commission is looking to keep that from happening. But you need a collective bargain to do that. So I think that's where we continue to take steps towards action, reaction, but this is all leading towards needing collective bargaining. Sure, we'll do something that's not free market, best for you, there's a cap and money, all that, but there's got to be a give and take in it, and so far there has not been any give and take.
Well, I'll interrupt quickly. Danny White this week in a conversation with Donnie Plowman, he said there's a camera here, so I'll say it, this isn't getting worked out without collective bargaining.
Well, because it's illegal. That's the thing that no one wants to talk about, and I don't know why everyone in the college football media, I don't know if it's ring kissing, I don't know what it is, but it's illegal. The thing they're asking Tennessee to do is to sign an agreement saying we will illegally put a salary cap on players, and you can punish us if we don't abide by your illegal salary cap, and we won't sue you. That's literally what they're asking them to do. I don't understand how this can continue to happen. I don't know if we just have incredibly successful people in college athletics who aren't used or just used to getting their way all the time, but it's illegal. This law in the state of Tennessee says you can't punish us for not breaking the law with you. That's what the law in the state of Tennessee says. The only way you can get a salary cap is to collectively bargain. Oh, by the way, even the stuff the College Sports Committee doesn't change the transfer portal landscape. So you still have contracts of players that you can't enforce because you still have the transfer portal there. So none of this gets solved. I don't understand any of it, and I commend for Tennessee for actually on the record being the one school that is willing to step up and say, this is stupid.
What do you guys think?
Immediately, I would say you stare them down and blink like you're at a poker table going heads up and say, try us, and then tell them to shove off. That's what I would do until they actually adjust some of these rules, something that you both can actually, the committee, whatever they put together, as Vince already put up, unless they do a collective bargaining, if you're the University of Tennessee, continuing at ground zero, where something exciting is happening when it comes to college sports, if Tennessee was willing to continue to push back on this and be the first to initiate, they continue to push back and be the first to initiate, and don't change your stance until they give you a better offer than, as Will has already highlighted, something that is very clearly illegal.
And it just shows the plot thickens and nobody seems to know what's going on. Right.
Well, it comes back to the lack of leadership.
Exactly,
right?
Exactly. And the NCAA to me is still at fault for letting it just fester and grow and turn into this when this could have been addressed, a decade ago, 2 decades ago, 3 decades ago, and now all of a sudden you're getting to this situation. I mean, it's crazy, and it's a state-by-state nature too, right?
Yeah, and to clarify, there are leaders in college sports. They just have their own objectives and agenda. I mean, Greg Sankey's in charge of doing what's best for the SEC. Danny White's in charge of doing what's best for Tennessee athletics. Tony Petitti, the Big Ten, on and on and on. But if you try to step back, zoom out, and look at the big picture, who's coming together to lead that? Right. A lot of people are trying, maybe, but with different interests.
I would also say that the leadership, it's you can't lead Texas and Mississippi State equally. Mississippi State has $43 million a year in football revenue. Texas has $207 million a year in football revenue. What's good for Mississippi State isn't good for Texas.
Give them the same check.
What's good for Texas isn't good for Mississippi State. So how do you set rules in place that benefit both, even if you're Greg Sankey? To me, you just can't. So I would like to see some level of national leadership in place, but also one that doesn't say we're going to punish you if you don't break the law with us. I would like to see someone step in that regard.
My one prediction, there will be more lawsuits.
Yeah, really.
Speaking of, here with Vince and Will, and we might see Zakai Zeigler back in Knoxville playing basketball again this year. Earlier this week, Zakai Zeigler filed lawsuit against the NCAA looking for a 5th year of eligibility. He played 4 seasons at Tennessee. The lawsuit mentions Spire Sports and the projection that he could make $2 to $4 million playing college basketball this upcoming season. He references that other athletes, they've redshirted, had 5 years to make money. He had 4 because he played all 4 seasons. What do you think? Will he be successful? What do you think about the lawsuit itself? As there is still the question, will we soon see 5 to play 5? That rule could change in the somewhat near future. Will, what do you think?
Yeah, no, I think that Zakai Zeigler, I think that he would get the injunction because he's right. Where else is he going to make money playing basketball? I don't know if he's going to do it overseas, right? But if he comes back to college basketball, probably $2, $3, $4 million. And so I think he's going to win. I think it's a really fair argument. I do think we will get the rule this summer that 5 to play 5. That's what you're going to get. I think it happens this summer. I know schools have been setting themselves up for that to be the rule.
There were players at the end of this most recent basketball season that they went ahead and entered the transfer portal without having eligibility remaining in case a fifth year came to them.
Yeah, so I think the expectation, I do believe that will happen, and I think Zakai is going to win this. I think he's going to be back at Tennessee, and I think that's going to be very good for Tennessee.
I think that could be connected to the settlement, because they clearly are invested in the rosters for play and players and how teams are getting to those rosters. So 5 for 5, I think would make it cleaner and try to maybe even limit some of the movement in college athletics overall. It's a matter of what kind of precedent that they want to set. Because if the NCAA does this, then it opens the door for a whole lot more of this. So if they do put in the 5 for 5, so then someone sues the NCAA and says,
or 8 or 10.
Right. So it really, if you go down that route and he wins this, you could really be opening things up unless you have some sort of a collective bargaining agreement to say you're not going to sue us and here are the rules for it.
Is the number of, that's the only way to get this is to collectively bargain. And this is what Danny White and Don DePlamo were talking about on X earlier this week, is that you can't just limit what an adult citizen in the United States, tell them you don't get to make money doing the thing you do anymore.
Well, pro sports have limits. They have salary caps and budgets, but they do it because it's collectively bargained.
Right. And they have an antitrust exemption that allows certain portions of those things to be collectively bargained. The Tennessee side of this, though, to me is the thing that's the most interesting.
Yeah, what do you think?
I think Tennessee's going to be, I think they probably become one of your favorite, if not your favorite, to win the national championship. I think that it will be the best team in Tennessee basketball history, especially compared to the other talent that's out there. There isn't a Stephen Castle, UConn this year, Zach Edey, Purdue coming up this year. And if you add Zakai Zeigler, I mean, and Gainey most likely as well.
Yeah, so Jordan Gainey, I have to imagine, would want to come back as well. We'll see if he joins or adds on in suing as well. But Jordan Gainey, he would be in the same boat of having an extra year if Zakai is able to get it as well. So I would think that he comes back. They also have brought in Jacoby Gillespie, point guard from Maryland. What do you think about how that looks? You play Gillespie off the ball, both of them off the ball at times. What do you think that looks like?
I think it'll be fine because Zakai played off the ball when Dalton Connect was here. He played off the ball for Chaz Lanier for a lot of times. So I think
freshman Kennedy Chandler and Zakai were both.
I think they'll be fine. You get worried about switches. Now you have a lot of length. You probably have to go with more length if you have both Gillespie and Zakai on the floor at the same time because they're both small. Everyone's going to look for switches and then try to back your guy down. But you feel really good about Tennessee's chances to make a Final Four, if not win the whole thing, if you get Gainey and Zakai back.
Well, they currently have one roster spot. So does Gainey come back similar to Josiah Jordan-James did, kind of in that walk-on role?
I think there are two things. One, if this happens, they could expand the rosters.
They could add the House settlement
from 13 to 15.
Yeah, right. It's supposed to go to 15.
So that I think Tennessee's anticipating that.
Right.
In fact, but also Josiah Jordan-James, he did plan to walk on, then a spot open, he got the scholarship.
Right.
Yeah.
So
if Zakai's numbers are correct, they can figure out the paying tuition part as well.
Yeah, and I think an already versatile roster would be even more versatile. And so how do you manage all that? I mean, that would be tough, but I agree with you. From a talent standpoint, no one, I think, would be more loaded in Tennessee.
I mean, you look at it, you have the 5-star freshman that you can have playing the wing. You have Boswell who can play the wing. You have, 4 good options on the block. So you have a level of depth that I don't know that Tennessee's ever had in a basketball team. If you can bring Zakai, especially bring Zakai and Gainey, well then you have Gainey and Ament both on the floor at the same time, Boswell backing them up. 4 guys legit on the block that can play for you. 2 point guards. My gosh, this team is loaded at that point if you bring them back.
It would be a reversal from the conversation this past season where the roster was limited in terms of numbers that were available and thin in the front court. This would probably be the deepest they've been in the front court.
Right.
And they would have to figure out minutes, how to manage minutes for guys that probably belong on the floor.
Ogbar coming back, Casey, the transfer from Vanderbilt. What do you get in J.P. Estrella coming off of the injury? Kate Phillips, who might play a little bit more on the wing. Yeah, it's a lot of versatility, a lot of good players.
And you're right, managing who gets minutes where, how you get the minutes, making sure everybody stays healthy and gets fed the way they want to get fed. that probably becomes the biggest challenge for Rick Barnes this year.
And before we wrap this up, other schools would have the chance to bring players back too. So we don't know what other rosters would look like. But if you add Gainey and Zakai back to the roster, I agree. I think it's one of the top in the SEC, which means you're one of the top contenders nationally probably as well. Also, believe Zakai would come back to Tennessee. I would be stunned to see him enter the portal and go somewhere else because he could command a lot of money on the market. Rodney Rice got $3 million at USC as an example. Right. But I'd be surprised, really surprised to see Rick Barnes say, thanks for what you did, Zakai. Play your 5th year somewhere else.
Well, also, I think for Zakai, I think he's smart enough to realize I can make money the rest of my life if I finish things off with Tennessee. Kind of what Quinn Ewers, why he didn't go somewhere else, is the same reason Zakai would come here.
Yep, very good. So we'll see what happens there. But Zakai Zeigler trying to come back to Tennessee for a 5th year. When we come back, serious question here. We're fighting for rules to be figured out. What if there were no rules? Which side would you be on? Keep fighting for the rules or no rules in college sports? We'll get to that when we come back. Back here, this segment with Tyler and Chuck, and this is a John special. I wish John were here. John will be back next Sunday, by the way, on the Sports Source. But, okay, we started the show with, can they get these rules figured out? They might come up with a rule, like they might have the House settlement, and then there are so many people that wonder, well, is this thing even going to hold up?
Yeah.
They've had to keep going back and figure things out. So, you have lawsuit after lawsuit. You have these eligibility questions. Do you get 4 years? Do you get 5 years? What if you said, play as long as you want? Lawsuits over who can pay whom what. What if you said, pay them what you want? Rob a bank if you have to. However you want to get it done, just get it done. You've heard about the Wild Wild West. What if it really became that? So you like that idea of stop fighting for all these rules and these lawsuits, or do you want to keep forging ahead, Tyler Ivins, and get it figured out? What do you say?
Keep forging ahead until you come with a collective bargaining agreement. You know, I've had this infatuation with Vanderbilt quarterback Diego Pavia from his New Mexico State days. I just thought that his story with everything he did with high school wrestling, a real bulldog mentality, little did I know that years later he would make his way and be one of the better quarterbacks, if not one of the best quarterbacks in the SEC coming up this year. I don't want to see Diego Pavia playing until he's in his mid-30s and he's collected tens of millions of dollars allegedly playing for the Nashville program. Look, we just continue to kick the can down the road but not get to the finish line. To me, it reminds me a whole lot of the college football playoff. Let's just get to the 16. Let's stop talking about buys, straight seeding. What are the rules? Let's get everybody in a room and let's figure out what they are. It can't be as difficult than what we already have right now. This whole scene of Wyatt Earp showing up with Doc Holliday trying to go after the Cowboys and being like, well, bye. There's got to be a way.
They didn't really go after the Cowboys.
Well, the Cowboys stuck their nose somewhere they weren't supposed to, and law had to be restored. Law, dog. So the point is, you got to find a way to be able to make sure you restore some type of law. And I think it's very simple. As long as some people will step aside from what they're currently doing and get together and go, guys, let's just figure this out, or we're not going to figure it out.
Right. Well, I mean, I think you have to have some rules, right? There's too much money at stake. There's too many different conferences, different states already playing by different rules. You got to have some kind of structure. I mean, what is the quote we keep hearing? The current system is not sustainable. We can't continue to do it like this and expect it to work. So, yeah, you've got to have something. I just wish you could lock them in their room so you can't come out till you figure it out.
There it is.
Yeah, a lot of can kicking. So, Chuck, what do you think fans want? And some fans are diehard reading every day, keeping up with every single story. Some are average fans. So what's going on? What exactly? Who's suing? What
I'm
do you
sure
think fans want here?
We're probably all in kind of the same boat. I've lost count of how many texts or posts or something. They just need to go straight to the salary cap. That's what they need to do. The NFL does it. And we've already talked about how you can't just do that right now. I mean, it's collective bargaining. It's something you got to work out, correct? And there's other issues involved, but they need something. I mean, how is a quarterback that plays football at Duke worth $4 million? Yeah. I mean, give me a break, okay? I mean, that's why the system you're trying now is totally screwed.
Tyler, I don't know if folks want completely no rules, but I've had people say to me, you know what? I kind of liked it better when maybe some athletes were getting something under the table and I didn't know about it. We weren't talking about it, and they got what they got, and then they went out and played the game. So the black market rules in quotes, kind of like those. Now, that wouldn't fix the whole situation, but I hear that from time to time still.
But just rules in general. Look, my co-host Will, he's off the set right now. He says the best stuff to us when we're in our office, when we have some off-the-scene changing, just tell us what the rules are and let us get to work so we can be the best at what we do. But at least let us know what those ground rules are before we get to work. Right now, there are no rules. 1 year Ohio State can have a $22 million roster and win a national championship, and then allegedly Texas can be somewhere in the high 30s, low 40s this year. Add parameters. I'm not telling you have to give us speed limits and stop signs, but give us some rules of too far, come on back. Right now, anybody can do what they want, when they want, burn down houses, pillage, take what they want, and keep moving on. Really, right now, we're living in a world where really there's 7 high-priced blue bloods, is there not? A bunch of Big Ten schools, a couple in the SEC, and maybe one sprinkled in the ACC. We're about a year away from all of us asking, how many people can realistically win the FBS national championship this year? 4 or 5, and it's never going to be any different than that.
Yeah, that part hasn't changed. I think so we have the NIL aspect. That's a lot of what we've talked about, the money. There's also the transfer portal.
Right.
I think that has really frustrated people more than the money itself. It's the constant movement. Now, if you can get the players, then you like them coming in. If you lose them, then you're not as happy about it. But it's the lack of. But here's another one. For the last year or so, I've heard, well, let's get some buyout structure in there, and they actually did, and then we had players on during the spring signing period in basketball sign with one school, and later that day changed their mind, and the new school just figured out the buyout stuff, and they still went from one school to the next. So that didn't fix anything.
Yeah, and with the portal guys, it's just too easy, right? I mean, somebody that has the chance to transfer, whether it's the parent saying you're not playing enough or we can get more money somewhere else, it's too easy. Can you have the one-time transfer? Can you not transfer in your conference? I mean, there's all kinds of different. The SEC, it's based on what time in the calendar it is, right? It can't be later in the calendar year. But that is just too easy. And with today's athletes, I mean, look at a Tennessee safety from MTSU. He's in a good position to get playing time. Where does he end up? Miami.
Yeah. Jacoby Thomas from the state of Tennessee, chance to play at UT and transfers out.
It's just too easy, and there's too much money somewhere else. So what are you going to do? You're going to pack your bags, you're going to go.
Okay, so final verdict.
Rules.
You guys are
rules.
You want more rules and continued court cases.
And I've been known as a rule breaker all my life, but I'm voting for rules.
Chuck Cavaleris, remember that with the Chucky C note. Breaking rules.
Breaking rules.
Be careful with how you spend. All right, when we come back, if Tennessee's goal is the playoff, the college football playoff this upcoming season, what's the minimum requirement? We'll get to that next. The whole crew here for a discussion on Tennessee's upcoming football season. We're about to enter the summer months of training for Tennessee, everybody getting back on campus, I believe this weekend, to begin or continue summer workouts. So we're back to the expectation conversation. Tennessee went to the college football playoff this past year, went 10-2 in the regular season to get there. Chuck, I'll begin with you. Let me ask you this. If Tennessee's goal is to get back to the college football playoff, I don't think anybody's denying that's the goal, right? To at least get back and then find more success in the playoff. What is the minimum requirement? Meaning, if you look around the SEC, project maybe what those teams are going to do, what does Tennessee need to do? What record does Tennessee need to get back?
If you look back last year, right, you were in the 8-9 seed game with 10 wins. So that pretty much tells me minimum requirement. I'm saying 10. Now, I'm hearing more and more 9-3 may be in the mix based on who you beat. But if I'm looking at it from a Tennessee perspective, and I'm just using last year as my measuring stick, I'm saying, guys, I think you're probably going to need to win 10.
I'll go 10-2, and I'll take it a step further. You need to do something you haven't done since Casey Clausen was the quarterback here. You got to win at Bama, or you got to win at Florida. I just don't think beating Georgia here at home is on the table. So 10-2 with a loss to Georgia and a loss to you pick Bama or Florida. Might I recommend maybe getting that win in Tuscaloosa, seeing how things happen in November, especially when you play Florida.
Agree?
Yeah, no, it's 10-2 is the answer, but I also think I think you can get there by hook or by crook. It doesn't matter who you beat, who you lose to, because if you lose one you're not supposed to, that means you beat one of Alabama or Georgia probably, right? So you have to go 10-2 at the very. That's the minimum requirement I think for this. You'd feel better about 11-1, but it does seem like the SEC cannibalized itself in a way that it normally doesn't, at least that second tier of the SEC. Mm-hmm. So I think if you go 10-2, you feel like you have a puncher's chance to get in. like anybody 10-2 that was in the SEC was getting in last year. So as long as you're 10-2, I feel like you're getting in this year.
Mm-hmm.
I hate to just echo everybody else, but I think it's 10-2 also. Now, at first I thought, all right, they have to do what Tyler said. They have to break one of those streaks. But then their schedule and the other SEC schedules, I think in the toughness of this league, it brings everybody else down just a notch to where even if you don't have one of the toughest SEC schedules, Tennessee's probably going to be middle of the pack to bottom quarter, somewhere around there in terms of toughest SEC schedules. I think if you do lose to Alabama and Georgia and you don't break those streaks, or Florida, and if you don't break those streaks and say you beat an Alabama, I think it'll be fine. I think any combination of those losses ending up in 10-2, because the league will be very difficult this year and a little bit closer together, I do think 10-2 will probably get you there.
I will say one thing, though. I'm not going to automatically say you're not going to beat Georgia here. If you want to go to the playoffs, that's the game you need to win.
Yeah, but if
that takes some of the pressure off going to Alabama and going to Florida, where you have not won since the early 2000s. I think you got a puncher's chance. I think you got a decent chance at home against Georgia.
What week do they play Georgia?
September, right?
If that game was October, November, I'd say there's a chance. I don't think you're going to have certain men in the secondary back, and there's a chance that Joey Aguilar maybe isn't completely ready to go. What are we now, 97, 6 days away? I have concerns if Joey Aguilar is going to be ready for Syracuse. That means I've got questions if he's going to be ready for Georgia.
And I agree with them. Look, I agree with Chuck that if you beat Georgia at 10-2, I feel like you're very much in.
Yes.
I do have a concern that, to me, again, that's the minimum requirement. I don't know that you're guaranteed to get in at 10-2 because Ole Miss plays a ridiculously easy schedule. Missouri plays a ridiculously easy schedule.
Mm-hmm.
So if they don't weigh strength of schedule like they didn't weigh strength of schedule last year, Notre Dame, Indiana, then you could be 10-2 and still not get in, but that is the minimum requirement.
I was going to ask, are we guaranteeing Tennessee a spot at 10-2? Last year, if Ole Miss doesn't blow a game, let's say they just beat Kentucky at home and they're 10-2, Bama doesn't blow it against Oklahoma, that would have made things more interesting, right? In the 10-2 SEC conversation. Now, Oklahoma's expected to be a better team. You beat Oklahoma at home this year and go 10-2. Maybe your resume is a little better than it was this past season, but resumes could be interesting within the conference this year if you have a bunch of 10-2 teams.
I'm bullish on the Big 12 this year. I think they get 2 teams in. They're that good. Notre Dame, 4 from the Big 10, 4 from the SEC. I just did the math. That's 11.
So who's 12?
The group of 5.
No, ACC.
Oh, ACC getting 1?
Yeah.
And they could get 2 as well. That's why I think the Big 10 and the SEC needs to be prepared.
Yeah.
One of those conferences might only get 3 teams in this year.
That's the right question. Will 10-2 guarantee you a spot? No.
Well, there are no guarantees in life.
Yeah.
Right. This is likely the last 12-team playoff. Likely going to 16. Again, one of the conversations we haven't even gotten to today of the topics that is being covered right now in the world of college football. And Will, you mentioned you could have a slip up. I wouldn't recommend that in terms of like last year's Arkansas because of the 2 road games at Bama, at Florida. I agree with you that let's say they lose at Kentucky, but they go 3-1 against Georgia, Bama, Oklahoma, Florida. I think they're still probably in.
Yeah.
I don't love their chances to go 3-1.
And I think John Pennington might want somebody to point out 8-4 may be more likely than 10-2. And I wouldn't say you're automatically going to beat Oklahoma here either. But
Tyler,
I do think
the over-under win numbers
for this Tennessee football team with so many holes as they have, which we're going to be talking about later in the show, I think 8-4 is more likely than 10-2.
Yeah. I don't think we're saying that they're going to go 10-2 just in that hypothetical scenario to get there.
They're not in at 8-4.
They're definitely not
8.5 is the number. Is that currently where the win total still is?
Heavy on the over for the juice.
Yeah, but it was in that range last year. Correct.
Right. Exactly.
Josh Heupel has surpassed his win total each of the first 4 years set on Vegas, depending on where you shop. He's 4 for 4. So I see it at 8.5. History tells us you should take the over, but I'll take a step back if you've got some 9.5 tickets that were out there before Nico left in the transfer portal.
Okay. Well, that ticket's gone. As is
it is.
As is this segment. Speaking of, when we come back, we'll start to break down the Vols area by area, and we'll start with Tennessee's passing game. Stay right here. For the next few segments, we're going to go area by area with Tennessee's football team on the offensive side, then the defensive side, and what better place to start than with the passing game, which has undergone some changes, if you guys have seen here in the last few weeks. Joey Aguilar is on campus now, transfer from App State to UCLA, now in Knoxville, teammates back on campus. He's been working with coaches, could zoom in and then again, has been on campus for the last almost couple of weeks now. But this is everything. So it's the quarterback position, it's pass protection, it's the receivers. That's also a new look group there, the wide receivers. Miles Kitselman coming back helps at tight end. So what do you think? 1 to 10 scale. Vince, I'll start over there on the end. We'll work our way over. Where's your confidence level? 1 to 10. How do you kind of grade out what you see with this passing game overall heading into the summer months?
I would give it a 5, and it's not because there's not upside to go up. I'm not convicted that this is not going to work, but it's so unknown with so many questions on top of questions. How good will Aguilar be? Will they be able to improve his completion percentage and not throwing the football to the other team? Those kind of things. And then also all the wide receivers. I know they don't play a lot of wide receivers, and there's really good talent there, but they have to be much better than what we've seen. Not just make up for where they left off last year, but be much better. So have that deep ball threat and be able to do run after catch stuff. There's so much that position needs to improve. And then you're taking a hit at running back. What do you have from that group? Offensive line with 4 returning starters. I know John Pennington has pointing out that Oklahoma wasn't going to be good last year because they're replacing 4 or 5 starters on the offensive line. Now a couple of veterans there. It's a little bit different now for Tennessee, but it's just too many questions. So I put it at a 5 with some talent to potentially outperform that.
Yeah, I'm going to say a 6, so slightly better than Vince, but part of it's this. If you go back to tempo, 8. If you don't go tempo, 4. I think it's going to be bad, straight up bad within the SEC because if Tennessee goes tempo, you eliminate some of the blitzes that they had problems with last year. You don't need your running backs to be as good in pass pro. You're not worried about any type. Everyone has to go base vanilla when Tennessee goes Josh Heupel's tempo. When they don't, though, you're running the same offense 500 teams in the state of Texas are running in high school are running right now. So there's nothing special to it. You don't have incredible talent, I wouldn't say, either at receiver or on the offensive line or at quarterback. But when you put them together in this system, it can fit incredibly well. But if you don't go tempo because we're going to try to win with defense and running the football again, I think that passing game is going to straight up be bad.
And why didn't they run tempo last year? Because they didn't trust the quarterback at times. They were getting penalties on early downs to put them behind the chains, and they weren't having successful first down plays when they would run a play. So the game sometimes is going to dictate their tempo, how good your players are, can they execute what you're trying to call. So they could want to run tempo, but it may not be in the cards for them.
So Vince, you're a 5, Will, you're a 6, teetering. Could go up to 8,
yeah,
could
but
drop
they go,
back down.
yes.
So 5, 6, 1 to 10 scale, Tyler Ivins. How do you look at Tennessee's passing attack, the passing game of Tennessee's offense?
So I always kind of like leaving 20% for a server. I'm going to start at a 5. And then I'm going to go to the 5 positions on the offensive side of the ball. And if there isn't a question mark, then I'll give them a point for every one. I have a question about every position on the offensive side of the ball, so I'm going to start and I'm going to finish with a 5. Question mark at quarterback, you've already knocked it out. Got your injured to your start tight end and Miles Kitselman, question mark. Offensive line, you're going to start Lance Hurd and then David Sanders with the money you're paying him immediately has to start at right tackle. I'm being told there are some issues with snapping and getting the ball to the quarterback at the center position. Sam Pendleton.
Vital part of the passing offense.
Yeah, getting the ball to the quarterback.
Yes.
Sam Pendleton is going to start somewhere. Will he be a center? Will he be a guard? Your wide receivers, you have 6 in the room. Some you feel comfortable with and some that you'd like to maybe throw some cash on to have a huge season, but it's not guaranteed. And even with the guy that you expect to be running back 1 in the local product in Deshaun Bishop, is he willing to take on the carries? That was the same question we had about Dylan Sampson last year. And Dylan Sampson answered the question with flying colors. So now if Deshaun Bishop is in fact RB1 with the other 2 guys behind him, I still even have questions about workload, injuries, and transferring over from Duke, much like Star Thomas did. Again, I know we'll get to the defense, but on the offensive side, I can't remember the last time I looked at a Tennessee football season and went, oh man, the question marks just get larger and larger everywhere you look on that side of the ball. So 5.
Putting you down for a 5. Okay. Well, Will West, we're aligned. I'm a 6. I still think that there is a higher floor. Some of the questions, let's say Joey Aguilar is the quarterback. By the way, we can finish out with that. There's a quarterback battle that still has to be decided. But if I look at it and I see, okay, well, some of Aguilar's concerns, if he's the starter, had to do with turning the ball over, mistakes, and new offense, so that could still happen. Josh Heupel's pretty good at limiting mistakes by his quarterback.
That offense allows you to limit mistakes.
So that alleviates some of the concern that I have there. But what about that? That there is a quarterback battle. We don't know that Joey's the guy. We don't know that it's only Joey that is the guy, or that it's only Jake if he ends up winning the job. I'd be surprised if McIntyre is the guy right away as a true freshman, but Tennessee has to figure out a quarterback battle before they have that guy lead the offense.
I think if it's not Joey Aguilar, you're in trouble. I think you recalibrate everything about this Tennessee football season. Unless Jake Merklinger just takes massive steps, like literally maybe I've never seen a college quarterback take, then I think that it's Joey Aguilar's job. But if it's not Joey Aguilar's job, that means something bad happened. And I would say get your bags packed for Memphis or Birmingham when it comes to bowl season instead of Florida.
Don't you dare
that's
say
what I would
that.
say.
Yeah, the fact that it is so much of an unknown at that position, how it's going to play out, that overrides the entire pass game and all the elements that are connected to it. It's not that they're definitely going to be bad or average. It is, there's the unknown, and there's a lot of variables that could kind of, all right, they address this, but then this might hold you back. There's just a lot there altogether, unfortunately, that are still to be determined.
Yeah, and this is why I think tempo is so important, because if you go tempo, then you give a chance for, one, everybody else has to go base. Two, somebody can make a mistake. They're going to. It's not the individual play. It's just you do that 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times downfield. Somebody's going to blow coverage at some point in time. Then that opens up the pass downfield. Joey Aguilar does not have a great arm. He does not, but he can get the ball of his hands quickly. So if you're Tennessee and you're able to go tempo, you're going to catch somebody on a busted coverage, and you're going to get those yards after catch that we're talking about. You're going to get those deep plays because somebody blew it. You know what I mean? And that's what it's going to take, as opposed to last year. It felt like Tennessee in the passing game was trying to force the ball downfield to get splash plays. And I don't think you get splash plays by trying to get splash plays. I think you get splash plays by baiting someone into blowing it in a coverage assignment or having one-on-one. Yes, and beating them downfield.
Tyler, quickly close us out.
Yeah, put me down for the biggest story of replacement. Somebody who left the program from last year isn't Joey Aguilar replacing Nico. It's who's going to take over for Cooper Mays. How bad did this offense struggle when Cooper Mays had a hernia or he missed time, injury? Find who your starting center is. You need it, and you need it in the worst way.
Okay, 1 to 10 scale on the passing game for Tennessee's offense. We are at a 5.5. When we come back, same question, but we move to the ground game. We'll stay with Tennessee's offense. Stay with us right here on the Sports Source. Back here with Will, Tyler, and Chuck, and we continue the conversation 1 to 10 scale, so same basis here. We switch to the ground game. Chuck, we welcome you back in the segment.
Thank you.
We'll open it up with you. 1 to 10 scale. Where are you on Tennessee's rushing attack? So they have to replace Dylan Sampson.
Yes.
But they're going to do that with probably more guys as a committee, would be my guess.
Which we've heard that before.
Yeah,
right?
than we saw last year with the role that Dylan played. And then it is a new look offensive line as well.
Yeah.
By the way, the quarterback position, we can get to that and how it factors into the ground game. But what do you think? 1 to 10 scale with the rushing attack for Tennessee.
Well, part of this is I would have confidence in Josh Heupel and his running offense being able to figure things out and to make this part better than some of our other grades have been. Okay? I look at this, and is Peyton Lewis going to be able to stay healthy? I think he is a dynamic back. I think he can do a lot of things. Deshaun Bishop, I think, is probably the closest to what you've had before in times what he can bring. How much does Star Thomas emerge for being able to get some carries? So what I feel in my confidence in this offense, I'm going to give it a 7.5.
7.5.
I would give it a little bit more just based on the history of what Josh Heupel does, but I think you've got some questions about the offensive line, too.
By the way, guys, is this Cavalier saying 7 or 8? Which
That is, yes.
You're decimaling my decimal at the end of the segment.
I'm going to say 7, so do you want to ride with me on that one? That's your call.
I'm riding with you, pal.
All right, then we'll say
Always ride
7.
with Ivans.
Yeah, I would say, here's my thing, and Chuck even started it there. I think if you told me right now in a pecking order, I think at the end of the season, when you look at carries and rushing yards, Deshaun Bishop 1, Star Thomas 2, Peyton Lewis 3, because I have concerns about Peyton staying healthy as well. Star Thomas, when you look a little bit inside of his numbers last year at Duke, and a lot of people have pointed this out, against better competition, less numbers. Now, if you look back at that competition, Duke was having to play from behind in a lot of those high-risk games, so Star wasn't getting as many carries as he should against lesser competition. I think because of what you were able to do to get in a reliable number 2 like Star Thomas, just in case injuries or whatever the situation might be for Peyton Lewis fails them, I expect the Carnes product, Deshaun Bishop, to take a massive step in that direction, much like we saw 2 years ago with Small and the rest of the camp. So I'd say it's 7.
Hey, look, I'm at 7 too, but I'm opposite of those guys. I think that Star Thomas is going to be your starting running back. I don't know if Deshaun Bishop's. I need to see him with a volume of carries, be good enough at this level. I think he clearly good enough to play as a number 2 back, maybe as a mid-major back. And I know he's a local guy. I'm not trying to rip the local guy, but I just need to see that. And I've watched Star Thomas at a power conference level get it done on a team for what he did with Manny Diaz. So I think it'll be Star Thomas 1. I think it'll be Bishop 2, Peyton Lewis maybe 3. And a lot of it may come down to who does what in pass protection, because that was such a massive problem for Tennessee last year, especially if they don't go tempo on offense. You're going to need a running back who can block.
Well, I still think if you're looking, I think you may be looking at more at the running back by committee.
Probably.
I don't know if he's actually going to be, and Heupel is very big on who has the hot hand, who does not fumble. And that was a little bit of a problem last year. So, in looking at this, I'm not as high on Star Thomas just yet because he hadn't done it in the SEC. At least we've seen some of what Deshaun Bishop can do at times. But I still think the big key is these guys staying healthy in a running offense when a lot of times you're slamming it off tackle and you're taking some pretty big hits in there.
So I'm going to go 8. I'm slightly above you guys, and that is a Josh Heupel vote as much as personnel vote. We've just seen the offense as soon as he arrived, took off running. And it's continued to do that. And I don't expect any one player to have a Dylan Sampson season. I'm not even sure they wanted Dylan Sampson to have that kind of season. He had to do it, and boy, did he. And then as the course of the season goes, maybe DeJuan Morris. I'm never confident in a freshman right away. But if they deal with some of these injury concerns that are there in October, November, maybe he's somebody that they trust as well. So that, and then Joey Aguilar, I do think he'll be involved if he's a starting quarterback. I think he's a guy that he's going to have to use his legs.
So 7, 7, and an 8, is that a 7.5?
It's pushing there. If you're looking for the optimism of the segment, we'll get you there, Chuck. Chuck needed the decimal. We need to continue with the show, and we'll switch to the defensive side. Might find a lot of confidence. When we come back, we'll talk Tennessee's defense, what to expect from the pass defense in 2025. That's next. Last couple of segments, guys, we looked at the offensive side. Now to the defensive side, which played obviously a huge role in the Volunteers' ability to get to the college football playoff. Will this segment begin with the pass defense? And they have to replace key players. There is the question of Jermod McCoy coming back from his torn ACL, but he's a preseason All-American. Nobody questions his ability if he's out there healthy on the field. James Pierce Jr. was a first-round pick, has to be replaced. Omar Norman-Lott was drafted by the Kansas City Chiefs. He has to be replaced on the interior. So they have some guys they have to replace on the defensive front. Guys that transferred out in the secondary, but they've also brought in somebody like Colton Hood, who should help at corner, which probably is important while McCoy comes back. So same focus here. Scale of 1 to 10. Tyler, where are you with Tennessee's pass defense heading into the summer?
8. I think with the defensive line combination with an upgraded, better Willie Martinez secondary, I think it's going to be probably the best unit again. We spoke with Josh Heupel at a luncheon a week and a half plus. Hey, is there any way, somebody asked me a question, is there any way that your defense can be better than it was last year? Well, we hope so, and we think it can be. Tyree West, massive opportunity to be able to make up for some of the things left behind by the players you just mentioned. The one player I'm hoping takes a massive step, like can't wait to be in Pittsburgh to be drafted next year, Joshua Josephs. I want to see Joshua Josephs absolutely start making up some of the ground, make him be the double team guy that we saw so often last year with James Pierce. He's a couple that come to mind. And also I want to see if Arion Carter or Jeremiah T-Lander can also do what they need to get through to the offensive line. I think it's going to be the highest ranking out of anything we talk about this afternoon.
All right, Tyler's an 8 on Tennessee's pass defense. Who wants to go next?
I'm not quite as optimistic about that. I mean, you're losing like certainly an all-SEC corner, an ACL. We don't know for sure how soon he's going to be back, if he will be back full strength in the first year. You talked about some of the other things. I think there's yards to be gained against this Tennessee defense through the air. You can say that about a lot of teams. With the pass rush, we saw it was more effective getting pressures than sacks and the tackles for losses. I'm going to give it a 7 on how I think, because the defense is the one side that has made consistent, even if it's not great strides, it's some improvement year after year after year, all 4 years. So I don't expect a big drop-off, but I think there's a lot of things that have to fall into place.
Okay, question still looming for Chuck. So he's a 7, which is not too bad, by the way. But an 8 for Tyler, 7 for Chuck. Scale of 1 to 10. Vince, where are you with Tennessee's pass defense?
I'm at 7, and because there's multiple elements to it, I'm a little bit more bullish on the pass rush, on the defensive line, helping that especially. And then there's certainly questions on the back end, so I think it evens out to a 7. I do feel good that Joshua Joseph is going to be really good and take that next step. Got to find a second guy. Is it Caleb Herring? Is Jordan Ross ready for that big step? He missed a lot of spring. I do think there's still some candidates to get you some pass rush in the middle. And Tim Banks will always kind of generate some different exotic blitzes to it at times. So I think they'll be good there, and I trust Rodney Garner. That's another aspect of it. And then on the back end, just razor thin back there. Especially if you don't have McCoy out of the gate, and Ricky Gibson. How good is Colton Hood? It's a veteran addition, but can he make that adjustment? Not the biggest guy. And then Jalen McMurray. He worked a lot at the star position because Boo Carter practiced some at wide receiver. How much are they going to be able to play Boo Carter if they're really thin and Jalen McMurray's got to play an outside corner spot? And then that second safety spot is kind of dicey right now too, with a lot of young players. So more questions on the back end. Feel good about the benefit of the doubt with the pass rush. So I'll go 7.
And I think with Boo Carter, I think his priority still needs to be defense.
Yeah,
1,000%.
1,000%. And if you can get him 6 to 8 touches minimum on offense, I think you're doing great. Get him on the field, but if you can get him involved some, however you do it, in different ways, but you need him on that defense and you need him on the back end.
And Willie Martinez said he's making the calls on the back end. So it sounds like more mature, more invested, more knowledgeable about what's going on. So if he could take that step there, maybe you get some game-changing plays that can offset some of that lack of depth on the back end.
So I'm a 7 as well. I did say we ride with Ivans here, but not in this segment. It's a ride share with Vince, Chuck, and Josh here. But it's because of questions that have a chance to have really positive answers. Right. Colton Hood is a nice guy to bring in this late when you need help at corner. Change at safety could end up being good. Maybe Idris Farouk ends up having a big second year on campus, and then you have Boo Carter take a big step, and Jermon McCoy comes back healthy as quickly as possible, and he's really good, and Ricky Gibson's better. But those are just too many ifs for me to be that high as an 8 or better now. The potential is still really good. Same with guys up front. You need Caleb Herring to make a jump. Can Jordan Ross be a guy year 2? He's a 5-star player. Yep. Is he somebody that can make a difference right away? So if those things come together, then this pass defense from Tennessee can be as good or better than next year. They need these next few months to figure some of that out. Yep. And the sooner they get Jermon McCoy back, the better for Tennessee's entire defense, because opposing offenses pay attention when he's on the field.
Quickly, maybe this is not to be unfair. I mentioned earlier, Nico, replacement, who's your guy? I think more center. I know everybody's going to say who's going to replace James Pierce. I personally believe the question is going to be who's going to replace Omar Norman-Lott. He was a massive, massive reason why Tennessee finished second in the SEC at stopping the run. Who's going to replace a guy who just
still, even like with the NFL, you heard at the draft that he didn't play a large number of snaps because they had a lot of rotation there. Yep. So I see what you're saying, but that tells me if somebody else can step up, that role is not as if he's on the field virtually every down on defense.
That leads us into our next segment, the rotation on the interior. When we come back, Tennessee's rush defense. Will it be as good this upcoming year as we saw this past year? We'll get to that next. With Chuck, Vince, and Will, this segment, we talked pass defense. What about rush defense this segment? Really good last year, but they do have some players we discussed in the last segment that have to be replaced. Right. You also have Rodney Garner coaching guys that will then take that next step. A Jackson Moy with the chance to play at a higher level, play more snaps this upcoming season. So, same focus, 1 to 10 scale. Where are we, Will, on the end there? 1 to 10 scale on Tennessee's rush defense this year.
I'm going to be lower than everyone else. I'm going to say a 6. I think you needed that depth at defensive tackle. I love the linebackers. I love the pieces in place, but I wonder for a team the last 3 years that's relied on depth at defensive tackle, and I don't know where the depth's going to come from at DT right now, I think it will be good. I think it will not be elite like it has been at times the last couple of seasons.
I'm a little bit higher. I'm at an 8. And Rodney Garner figuring things out, figuring out his personnel, motivating his personnel. Maybe we haven't seen these guys enough snaps. The player development that you get with Rodney Garner. And I think they have position versatility. I mean, some of those guys, like Tyree West, who plays in the end, he's a guy you can slide inside also in some downs. So I do think Jackson Moy is the answer to the question of who replaces Omar Norman-Lott. And you mentioned him coming in as well. So I think they have enough pieces. Maybe they don't go as deep, but you still have big physical guys that defend the run typically really well. And I do think you'll get enough player development with those other guys that you can rotate enough and not have a huge drop-off.
Well, and, John Pennington, we had this question on the Sports Source digital channel that's doing so well. And
Free on
Tyler
YouTube,
Ivins,
go check it out.
and Tyler Ivins, and I looked at these numbers, and the rushing numbers allowed by Tennessee the past 3 years are like just north or south, 3 yards carry. So that's pretty good, and it's been stable. I don't think that's going to change a whole lot. One question I wondered, Tennessee's offense, you're going to be tempo or you're not tempo? If you're running tempo and you're going 3 and out, are you sending your defense back out there again more often? And if you don't have quite as much depth, especially up front, like Will was saying, that could be. But I think this is the strength of Tennessee's defense. I think stopping the run, tackles for loss. How many times have we heard that? I have an 8.
Yeah,
An 8, okay.
Could I be wrong, though, too, that maybe subtraction by addition to James Pierce is an edge? What he brought to you in the past game, he was a liability in the run because he clearly just – it was not an area of importance for him. I mean, he just didn't do a great job setting an edge. So I do wonder, are you going to be a little bit better against those outside zone plays because James Pierce isn't there?
Well, Joshua Joseph's actually, his really good Pro Football Focus grading was more against the run. He doesn't have big sack totals. That's the area that he needs to make the jump. But he was very good in those runs. So that's probably why he got just as many snaps, or a lot of them, in that situation. One last thing, in this rush defense, part of that deal is the linebackers.
Yes, Arion Carter coming back, dealt with off-season surgery, so didn't go through spring, but very important third year for him. Yeah. T-Lander's back for another year. A second-year guy like Edwin Spillman, what kind of jump does he make is a big deal.
Spillman is like T-Lander and Carter, where they're just like Sikkim. They hit the gap, they see something, and then they go after it. But then teams misdirection them, especially late in the year, get out of your gap, and then suddenly you got explosive run plays or play action out of it. So they got to be better in that area. Love the physicality and the athleticism, but they got to be better in being able to stay in their gaps in the right positions and then be there for tackles when those opportunities present themselves.
Okay, so Will's a 6.
Reluctantly, I think he could almost change it if I was reading what he was saying.
Yeah, it could. But my concern is everything, the lack of depth. Okay. Plus, if you go tempo again, I think you might be in trouble.
All right.
Okay, Vince and Chuck are 8s.
8, yes. Strength of the defense to me.
And I'm a cop-out. I'm a 7. So we got to figure it out for now as the summer months approach. When we come back, easy to figure this one out. Lady Vols have to win. It's a winner-take-all Game 3 in the Super Regional. We'll get to that. Tennessee baseball, a lot to figure out heading into the upcoming regional. We'll get to that when we come back. Welcome back into the final segment of the Sports Source today, but we have more Sports Source content for you every Saturday at 11 a.m. Be sure to watch the Sports Source Saturday Kickoff. And 7 days a week, you can always check the Sports Source Digital Network on YouTube. Go subscribe, go check it out, the Sports Source Digital Network and the Sports Source Saturday Kickoff, Saturdays at 11 a.m. here on WATE TV 6. In our final segment of today's show, and a reminder, John will be back next week on the Sports Source. We'll see what happens today. 2 o'clock start time, Vince Ferrara. The Tennessee softball team, it's a winner-take-all, Game 3 in the Super Regional to go to the Women's College World Series. What has stood out Games 1 and 2 as you lead into this Game 3?
Well, surprising that Nebraska won Game 1, but some errors led to Nebraska being able to separate. So, and then they got to Carlin Pickens a little bit, which Carlin Pickens has been awesome. Tennessee still has the #1 ERA in the nation. Nice bounce back yesterday. Carlin Pickens, the fastest pitch in softball history, breaking her own record of 79.4, which is just amazing. And nice resiliency from Tennessee with the run late. So we'll probably see Jordy Ball again, the standout pitcher for Nebraska. He's pitched every inning, so it'll be a battle of 2 of the best pitchers in the country.
Fitting it's a Game 3, right?
Yeah.
In this series, in this match.
Most of the super regionals around the country, there have only been a handful that have been 2-0. Yeah.
Was the SEC baseball tournament showing fitting? They showed the signs of how good they can be. That win against Texas was huge, but the loss against Vanderbilt was some of the worst of what we've seen from Tennessee baseball at times. It's been frustrating. expected NCAA regional here in Knoxville, Tyler, and what do you take out of what you saw this past week?
Based on everything that I've put together with RPI numbers, and that can be a little tricky in any sport, depending on where you do RPI. Tennessee did enough over the wins against Alabama and Texas to get back in the conversation, and a lot of those NCAA's D1 baseballs, the ones who keep up with those RPIs, believe Tennessee has, in fact, gotten back into hosting here in Knoxville. What I've noticed is Liam Doyle's not the sharpest right now, but the bullpen is starting to come around. And what I will say is that if you've got a strong bullpen, as we highlighted on Thursday when you and I were out and about, Tennessee has about as good a chance as anybody. And I just don't know what Tony Vitello team you're going to get that put their feet from the bed onto the floor night in and night out.
Yeah, see, but I think you're forgetting defense. And to me, that's what's been killing this team at crucial times. I mean, and sticking with Dean Curley, and you got to give Tony Vitello credit. Well, what is it, Vince, now? 16 errors? Almost twice as many as anybody on the team. And it's not just him, but the defense has got to come around. You can't do the errors, the walks, the wild pitches, 10-0 to Vanderbilt. Come on.
Yeah, they expected to be better defensively coming into the year, so it really is surprising. Dean Curley's a better player than that. That's why Tony Vitello has said ride or die, and plus there's not exactly a ton of proven options, especially being able to produce offensively in addition to defense. You can't just go with an all defensive lineup. I do think that they will host a regional. I think that was the case prior to Vanderbilt. I don't think the needle was moved. They're basically the 7th SEC team. D1 baseball has them as number 14. And the problem with that is you're matched up with number 3 Arkansas. So that's obviously been tough for Tennessee. So, but yeah, they should have.
We'll find out if Tennessee softball is headed to the Women's College World Series today, and then we'll find out what the road looks like for Tennessee baseball to try to get back to Omaha. Guys, a lot of fun today. Thank you very much.
Thanks, John.
Big thank you to our crew here from WATE. Thank you to our sponsors, and thank you for hanging out with us. We'll see you next week right here on The Sports Source.